everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'll be reviewing Warcross by Marie Lu. Marie Lu is probably a familiar author to all of y'all because she wrote the Legend trilogy, which I have read and really loved, and then she also wrote the Young Elites trilogy, which I've only read the first book of, but really enjoyed as well. I think often when we see young adult authors write several series, they do a lot of things similarly, or it's like set in the same world, set in the same genre, something like that, but Marie Lu really does something different with each of her series. So the Legend trilogy is dystopian, and the Young Elites trilogy is fantasy, and then Warcross kind of touches on both, but it mainly leans sci-fi. So Warcross is set in the pretty near future where a virtual reality game called Warcross is very, very prevalent. It's like a common day staple. It's just a very prevalent and prominent aspect of this futuristic culture. And so there's this annual Warcross championship competition where the best players all around the world are competing on teams. And our protagonist is a girl named Emika Chen, and she is a bounty hunter, but she accidentally glitches herself into the opening game of the Warcross championships. And instead of being punished for that, the creator of Warcross invites her to compete on one of the teams, with the caveat that she's working on like a special undercover project for him. So that's mainly the premise of Warcross. My overall reaction to this book is that I didn't really like it for a lot of the time. It took me a very long time to feel invested in the characters or in the situation. The entire premise of the novel, the fact that it's centered around a video game championship, felt very low stakes to me. Like, I thought the novel in general was entertaining, but I didn't really care for it until we hit the last quarter. There, Marie Lu unveils something that really changes the scope of the story. It shifts how we're viewing everything. I really, really enjoyed that. If you've read Divergent, I see kind of parallels between the two novels. Like in Divergent, you spend a lot of time in training and exploring this new world of like being dauntless. And then near the end of the book, there's a turn where you realize that something much larger is going on. So if you're in my position where you're reading Warcross and you're just like not that into it, I would suggest trying to get through it, finish it, get to the end, and then make your decision on whether you'd want to continue the series or not, because I think the end is where you really get to the crux of what the story is about. So I've said many times that for a lot of the book, I was just not very into what I was reading, and something in addition to just the storyline of it that I really didn't enjoy was Marie Lu's writing in Warcross. It frankly irritated me. It spoon-fed us everything, spelled everything out unnecessarily. Like, readers, regardless of whether the majority of your readers are young readers, which is often the case for young adult writers, we still have the skills of inference. Audience members subconsciously want to make connections between what you're presenting them with in your story, regardless of whether your connections are intentional or not. Just naturally, when we're consuming stories, we're never really that passive of consumers. Our brains are constantly trying to make connections, even if they don't really exist. So while I was reading, I found myself very annoyed that Marie Lu would introduce a plot element that was clearly a plant that would have a later payoff, and have Emika spend at least 3 lines talking about this particular plant and like the significance of it. To be fair, I might have only paid particular notice to the way that we were being spoon-fed in this novel because I was reading this alongside Turtles All the Way Down by John Green, and the writing in Turtles is very, very mature, maybe gratuitously so, but in Turtles at least I don't feel like things are being dumbed down for easier consumption. Like in Warcross, everything was so explanatory. Emika didn't do anything without explaining why she was doing it, what the effects of it were. It was exhausting because nothing was left subtle. So that was one of the major drawbacks I had with Warcross. However, something I think Marie Lu did really, really well was her fabrication of this world of Warcross. I didn't know this until I saw Christine's Polar Bananas books interview with Marie Lu, but this is apparently set in the same world as the Legend trilogy, and so Warcross is kind of like a precursor to the Antarctica that we see in the Legend trilogy, if you've read that series. And I thought that was really, really cool. The world of Warcross is so fun. It strikes a really, really good balance between having this fresh, innovative, futuristic feel, but also combining it with this nostalgic old school vibe. Like the rules of the game and the fact that there are power-ups and inventories and things like that, those are very common elements that we see in the games that we play today and also games that we've been playing for the past decade or so. But the translation of those common elements into a futuristic setting with like new technological advancements was very, very fun to read. So I think Marie Lu deserves a lot of credit for how she created a world that was this exciting and this fascinating. Overall, Warcross was fun. It was entertaining, but it really just didn't impress me like I was hoping it would. I don't feel a particular tie to the characters or to the story, but the questions that it brings up near the end once we get to the last quarter of the book I thought were so interesting. For the majority of the novel, I was reading this and I was thinking, this could really be a standalone. I don't understand why it's a series, but then you get to the end and you're like, I understand. This is like so much broader than just a video game championship. So after finishing this book, I'm very intrigued to see where Marie Lu takes the sequel. Now I'm going to go into a spoiler section for Warcross, so if you haven't read this book, I'd advise leaving in 3, 2, 1. Goodbye. Alright, so Hideo is honestly, like, he is so unwell. Like, he has intentionally allowed Warcross to be so accessible to virtually everyone in the world so that he could have a way of controlling them. Well, not him personally, but like he created the algorithm that would control them. That is bananas. That's not okay. But then he makes like a sort of reasonable argument where it's not really controlling people, it's just preventing them from doing bad things. And you find yourself kind of understanding and you're like, yeah, I guess it's not bad if just no one is doing any bad things. And the thing is, which Emika knows, and which I'm sure we all can agree upon, but crime is so subjective. One person's version of crime is not everyone's version of crime. And manipulation, or lying, or violence, or anything else that's considered a bad thing can have good intentions, but more so than that, they can have beneficial outcomes. So really the way that Hideo is viewing crime is very one-dimensional, very nearsighted, but the question that he brings up with his future ambitions and the fact that Marie Lu turned this novel that was about like virtual reality video games into something that's about like moral dilemma and what's actually good for the betterment of society and who decides what's good for society. Like, these are really interesting questions, and the fact that it took this turn at the last quarter of the book was surprising to me. I was not expecting it at all, and I loved it. Something I did expect, however, was Zero's identity. From the second we learned about Hideo's younger brother, I was like, this is him. This is Zero. Or Zero's the one who took him. I think there are still so many unanswered questions about why he's Zero, or why he's kept himself hidden this long, or what happened to him when he was taken. Was he even taken? Was it intentional? Did he intentionally disappear? Why has he kept his identity covered from Hideo for so long? And why is his main route to his ambitions through assassination of his brother? Why does he think terrorism is the best way to facilitate what he wants to do? Like, there's so many questions that we have, and they're all unanswered, and so really, Marie Lu has laid out an ambitious assignment for herself in crafting the next novel if she wants to cover all of these topics, but I'm so interested in seeing where it goes and how everything plays out. I will mention briefly that I wanted more dimension and more development of Emika's teammates. I think Emika and Hideo especially were very richly developed characters. They're very layered, very well crafted, but then the rest of them felt kind of dimensionless and I wanted more from them, but that was just a small thing. It's not a big deal. So if you have read Warcross, I would love to know your thoughts, so please leave them down below and I'd love to chat about this book with you. If you've read the Legend trilogy, I'd love to know your thoughts on how you felt about this series being in the same world as that one, because I think that's a really cool idea. I mentioned earlier that young adult authors, when they write several series, they're often like connected or very similar, and technically, yeah, Warcross and Legend are connected, but they're so different. It's not like she's writing mythological gods over and over again. She's not writing shadow hunters over and over again, you know? It's the same world, but it's such a different period, and so it still feels refreshing. It's new. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll have a fantastic day and happy reading. Bye!